With the provider network of Northwest Florida today, we have Joseph Macbeth. He's with the National Alliance of Direct Support Professionals. He's agreed to come on and give us a kind of a brief overview of what the NADSP does in Florida to help support our direct care people. Lots of things have changed in Florida in the last year or so. We need to find new ideas and new ways to recruit and retain our current people that are in the field. And his organization has some really good ideas with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him. And Mr. Joseph, if you're ready, and we're ready for you, go for it.
I am ready. Right. So let me share my screen. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you for inviting me here today. I got an hour with you, and there's a lot of information to go over. I am the president and CEO of the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. We are the only national organization whose sole purpose is to elevate the status of the direct support workforce. And we do this in a variety of ways. We try to improve practice standards through better training and certifications. We are a strong advocate for system reform. For the workforce, and advancing the knowledge, skills, and values, and raising the bar for the direct support workforce. We were established in 1996 from a small group of advocates. The most well-known of that group is John Kennedy Jr. The Kennedy family has a rich legacy of supporting disability issues, and John's was the creation of the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals when he was the chair of the President's Committee for People with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. And we would not be here without his voice and his advocacy. I want to be clear with you on a couple things before I begin. This crisis that we find ourselves in regarding recruiting and retaining direct support professionals was not caused by the pandemic. We had these issues for decades, and I don't call this a crisis because a crisis does not last 30 years. A crisis is sudden, a crisis is unexpected, and a crisis is temporary. We have been advocating for workforce issues for more than 30 years. The pandemic did shine a light on the weakness, the greatest weakness in our service sector, and that is our workforce. And I'm happy to say that, I'm a little bit more hopeful today than I was 3 years ago because the workforce is getting a lot of attention at the highest levels of government. And we're starting to see some temporary funding through ARPA, but we hope that this will lead to lasting change. But I have to be clear, these issues are not new, and you providers know that better than anybody. The information that I'm going to share with you today is, it comes from research. A lot of it comes from research. A lot of it is evidence-based, but also a lot of it is from my 40-year career, starting out as a direct support professional, teaching direct support professionals, advocating for direct support professionals, and what I've learned on my last 15 years on the road across the country and, well, actually North America, and being in rooms with direct support professionals. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you some very brief historical context to this issue. And then I broke it down into 4 specific areas: workplace culture. I'll give you some ideas about that, some reflections about workplace culture and how important that is. Recruitment and selection of direct support professionals, onboarding and professional development, otherwise known as training, and retention ideas, career ladders. And then there'll be some time, I hope, for some questions and answers. So in regard to some historical context, we're a new business. We have not been providing community-based services in the United States for very long. prior to 1972, if you had a developmental disability or an intellectual disability, you lived in a place like this if you did not live at home with your parents or your family. Institutions were the norm. Doctors were recommending institutional care for children with disabilities. And the reality is direct support professionals historically were working in these very large institutions. Of course, we don't have many of them today. When you take a look at our field since 1972, and that's where I think I use 72 because I'm from New York, and that's when we closed Willowbrook State School, the largest public institution in the country at that time. Horrible, horrible things were going on in the Willowbrook State School. But we started to see the closure of institutions and a lot more intention. Our field moves slowly. We embrace change very carefully and slowly. People's lives are at stake. We are not a field that turns on a dime. Disruptive innovations do not work in supporting people with IDD. We rely on change that is continuous quality improvement. So it could break it down into three eras, really. The era of institutionalization, where people with disabilities were seen as patients, and the caregivers were physicians and clinicians. When we started closing down those institutions, we saw a really fast growth of group homes. Community-based group homes, community-based settings, which is still in operations today. People with disabilities were back in their communities and living with others with disabilities. And then more recently, and even today, a lot of states and organizations are struggling to get to that third era of membership, where people are seen as full contributing citizens to their communities. They are living and working and recreating in their communities. They are contributing tax-paying members of their communities. They are able to make their own decisions. And this is the future. And direct support professionals play an important role in all three of those eras. But the reality is, in all three of those eras, the job is different. The job changes. The expectations are different. The requirements are different. And in fact, if we're going to make, I should have said this earlier, what I'm going to give you isn't going to solve your issues. It's some ideas. It will not solve the problem. What will solve the problem is funding. And funding is under a very careful watch these days. But the reality is, we are not going to implement some of the things that I'm going to be talking about without an increase in funding from our funders at CMS. So emerging roles, how the roles are changing across the country. When I was hired as a direct support professional in 1983, almost 40 years ago. And I was a caretaker. I was hired to work in a group home where 8 people who had previously been institutionalized were living. We were focusing on custodial care, providing companionship, basic coverage, focusing on health and safety issues. It was an entry-level job. It was a dead-end job. The only way you can make more money is to have 2 jobs, and most of us did, working a lot of overtime, and most of us did, or get a promotion into a supervisory job. That is not a type of job that is easy to recruit for. And we're still seeing those issues today. Direct support professionals can make a lot of money working overtime. But the reality is, tired people who work a whole lot of overtime, make mistakes. And sometimes mistakes can be catastrophic. So we want to find other ways for DSPs to earn a living wage rather than working 80 hours a week or working 2 jobs, or being promoted out of a job in which they are very good. I think in the future, we're going to see a different emphasis on the roles of direct support professionals. We're going to rely less on caregiving. Yes, there's always going to be an element of providing care, intimate care, personal care. helping people with intimate support in the bathroom at home. But I think the emphasis is going to be different. I think in the future, our direct support professionals will not be seen primarily as caretakers. They will be seen more as ambassadors or mentors or coaches who walk side by side the person that they support in their life. And I often refer to direct support professionals in the future as like a roadie for a band who's performing. You know, the roadies are there, they're setting up, they're making sure everything is just right. And then when the lights go on, they're out of the way. They're out of the way. Direct support professionals in the future must be culturally competent. You will have close interactions with other professionals. We will be supporting people in making their own decisions. Sometimes we will disagree with those decisions. Sometimes those decisions will be not the best decisions, but they're their decisions. And there's a process of that. I'm going to go over with that. And we are going to be relying more and more on technology, but the reality is technology will never replace the role of a direct support professional. They are here to stay. The expectations that we have for the direct support workforce is also changing. Historically, you know, the clinicians would come in, where I worked anyways, the clinicians would come in with the plans to support people, and all 8 people that I supported had the same toothbrushing goal. And there was a task analysis attached to that. And we blindly followed that written plan. I don't believe, my memory is a little sketchy 40 years out, but I don't believe that people that we supported had a whole lot of input into their plans. The plans were written by people who thought these things were important for the people, and not important to the people. And that's a big difference. The expectations, we were just filling shifts, and we had supervision readily available. In group homes, your supervisor was not far away, and your colleagues and your coworkers were not far away. And that makes the job somewhat easier, because when you are lost, or when you have a question, you can find the answer just down the road. I think now when you're supporting people in more self-directed settings, you run the risk of being professionally isolated, and there's a lot of risk involved with that. We did those community outings. They were not person-centered by any means. A lot of times we just loaded 8 people up in a silver van and drove around with no particular destination. And then we collected data on that and said that the folks that we're supporting are being integrated into their new communities, which was a horrible, horrible mistake and a horrible thing to do. I hope that's not happening today. I believe in the future, what you're going to see, I know what you're going to see, in fact, DSPs are going to be helping the people that they support to write their own plans. And those plans will be working on things that are important to people, not what clinicians think that is important for people. We will be helping people build meaningful friendships and relationships. The data is clear. Many people with disabilities are lonely without a network of friends. And loneliness has other issues with a person's mental health. So I focus on helping people engage with their family and friends is an important part of our work. Outings will be a thing of the past. We're going to focus on inclusion. And a great example of inclusion that somebody told me, I forget who it was, it may have been Dr. Beth Mount, who said a nice way to describe inclusion is if a person attends an event on or someplace on a regular basis and is absent, and people wonder where that person is, you are included. And that's an important thing for direct support professionals to know. We work with a lot of direct support professionals who tell us that they are advocates for the people that they support, and they are their voices. And that is a dangerous thing to say. Everybody can advocate for themselves, regardless of their disability. We are here to advocate with people, not for people. So you can see that what we're expecting from our direct support professionals in the future is changing in a really exponential way. We are no longer caregivers. We are professionals. It is not an occupation. An occupation is something to go to pay your bills. A profession is a career. And our job is to make this a career. So I want to start with a little bit of workplace culture. Culture is everything. Culture is everything. It matters. And it begins and ends with management, every level of management. It impacts all levels of your employees. How does it feel to work at your organization? What is it like? How do you treat your people? You know, the next slide I'm going to share with you is a little bit provocative, and it is not my words, but when I saw it, it really it rung a bell. The language that we use is important. We have a really active social media page on Facebook with 30,000 direct support professionals contributing to this dialogue. And you know, sometimes the conversations and the threads are really interesting to read. Sometimes they will scare the hell out of you because of the language that our direct support professionals use. For example, the word community. What is the word community to the people that we support? How do we define community? Well, the community is out every door, right? But direct support professionals often on our Facebook page, and even in conversation that we had, is like, we've gone out into the community. We take our people out into the community. What does that mean? You know, the community is not a Disney destination. The community is where you live, where you work, where you play, where you eat. The people that you are involved with is part of your community. Our job is to help people be included in their communities. It is not someplace to go to. Furthermore, regarding workplace, and language starts with management. I can tell when I'm interacting with direct support professionals with a strong corporate culture, the language that they use is respectful, is person-focused, is contemporary. We don't refer to the people as clients or residents. Workplace culture is everything. We should develop a workplace culture where direct support professionals is not seen as an entry-level job, but is valued as the most critical job in your organization. The system will collapse without direct support professionals. We know it. And I want you to just kind of reflect, if you're running an organization, where do direct support professionals fall on your organizational chart? Every organization, every nonprofit, even for-profits have organizational charts. And usually it's people like us, the executives are on the top, and then management and whatnot. And then you find direct support professionals at the bottom. And we often say that, you know, quality is defined at the point of interaction. Quality happens. And what is every business, every industry has a benchmark for quality, whether it's industry, whether it's finance, manufacturing, sales, healthcare. What is the benchmark for quality in our work? And it is helping people achieve outcomes. Outcomes is the benchmark for quality. Helping people achieve things that are important to them. Big things, little things. Buying their own house, living independently, helping somebody tie their shoes, whatever it might be. Those outcomes are quality. And most organizations like yours, you will find the direct support professionals at the bottom of your organizational chart. And I would recommend that you've got to turn that upside down. If we're measuring quality at the point of interaction, and quality rests for the most part on the shoulders of the direct support professionals, and they're at the bottom of your organizational chart, what message does that send to them? What message does that send to your customers? I say turn it upside down. You executive folks, you're the foundation. The foundation is at the bottom. Be at the bottom. Be the support. And then direct support professionals, because that's where quality happens, should be at the very top of your organizational chart. And our job is to support them. to help them have everything that they need in terms of training and professional development and recognition and support and money. Workplace culture. Often we talk about mentors. Most professionals do have mentors. I have 2 mentors myself still today. After working in this field for 40 years, I have people who I can call and talk me in off the ledge when I'm having a bad day. People who know me, people who understand me, people who know my work, people who help me, not my supervisors, people who have a genuine interest in my success. Think about who are your mentors, and does your organization nurture mentor relationships to promote professional growth and to also promote the culture of your workforce and your workplace. Mentors, there's a lot of research about mentors. I'm not going to spend that much time about it. The best mentor-mentee relationships happen organically. They are not assigned. They are certainly not supervisors. But I would encourage you to take a look at offering opportunities for mentors. Direct support professionals really do need somebody that they can count on outside of their supervisory line. Does your organization promote a global view of our work? Do direct support professionals understand healthcare financing? Do they understand their role? 1.5 million of you supporting people with IDD in this country would not function without you. Your salaries are set not by your employers necessarily, but by CMS, our primary funder for home and community-based services, and negotiated at the state level. Budgets are determined at the state level. Are you involved in advocating at the state level? Because direct support professionals often focus on what's in front of them. They're focusing on supporting that group of people or that person, and they don't see the bigger picture. They're not included in that advocacy work that you have in Tallahassee and certainly DC. DSPs need to advocate for themselves. And we often keep that information away from them and advocate for them. And I see this as a social justice issue. When you look at the demographics of this workforce, nearly 90% of our direct support professionals are women. A vast majority of them are women of color. Take a look at other occupations that are primarily women and minorities, then you will find a low-wage job. It's a social justice issue. And every successful social justice movement in the history of this country was successful because it was led from within. Civil rights was not led by white people like me. The women's right to vote was not led by men. Gay rights was not led by straight people. This issue needs to include direct support professionals, and that's on you. It's on you. We're here to help you. Lastly, and I know I'm dating myself, this is Monty Python. I was a big Monty Python fan as a kid. But do your teams, I mean, when I work in organizations, when we're there, I can get a vibe. I capture a vibe. And I can get a feel and a sense of what it's like to work at your organization. Do you celebrate as a group? Do you share information? Are you transparent? Do you recognize success? Do you support when somebody's struggling? Do your direct support professionals have an opportunity to reflect on their work, reflect on what works with people, reflect with your colleagues? American direct support professionals do not have time to reflect. When you look at other countries like in Scandinavia in particular, where they do not have the issues that we have, because their direct support professionals are seen as professionals, they carve out time for reflection. Professionals reflect. Do they laugh? Do you listen? Do you help people do you give your direct support professionals the opportunity to make their own decisions? Do they argue with each other in a very respectful way? That's tricky because that relies on supervisory skills, but my team, we'll have disagreements. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. And it's respectful. And then when we disagree and then we hug it out, man. I mean, we're in this together. And there's a vast majority of direct support professionals out there in this country who sees our work as us and them. Us are the direct support professionals, them are you, the management, who do not understand what we do. And that's got to change. This is the slide that I wanted to, it's a little provocative. Your organization doesn't have a recruitment problem. It has a retention problem caused by a leadership problem. That's not my words. It's something to think about. If we had the answers to recruitment, we wouldn't be having these conversations today. I recently spoke at a legislative hearing in a state, and one of the legislators asked me, what's the best way to recruit direct support professionals? And I tried not to be flippant. I tried not to be a smart guy. But the reality is the best recruitment tool that you can have is a living wage. Pay people and they will come. We can get people in the door if we pay them more. Doesn't mean we're going to keep them. How we keep them is how you treat them. So recruitment, let's get into recruitment. And I know that's provocative, and I know I'm a Northeasterner and a New Englander, but the reality is I was also a direct support professional for many, many years.
You're doing great, Joseph. I really appreciate your suggestions. So,
oh, thank you.
We're hanging on every word. Carry on.
Okay. As a direct support professional, I've seen good leadership and I've seen bad leadership. And I wanted to follow the good leaders. All right, recruitment. First thing we got to do as a field is come up with a job title that we all agree on. These are job titles. All of these job titles are being used out there. I don't know what you call your direct support professionals in Florida. Add to this list. None of them have any meaning to government. None of them are recognized by the Department of Labor. So we as a field need to rally around a common job title, direct support professional. And I see direct support professional as an umbrella title, like a registered nurse. My mom was a registered nurse for 50 years. She had one job, 50 years working in the same hospital. Everybody knows what a registered nurse is, but registered nurses, you will find them working in a variety of different places, using a variety of different skills and expertise. Nurses will be working in hospitals at giving bedside care. Nurses will be working in emergency rooms. Nurses will be working in operating rooms. Nurses will be working in public schools. Nurses will be working in community mental health programs. Nurses will be working in doctor's offices. You get my point. They're all nurses, but they have a specialty area. They have expertise, but their job title is a registered nurse. Direct support professionals work in residential settings, work in self-directed settings, work in day settings, work in employment settings, work in respite settings, work in community rehabilitation settings, work in family homes. They're all direct support professionals, but they have different skills. So we, as a field, cannot expect government to know who we are if we're calling these people 100 different titles. Let's come around and call them what they are, direct support professionals. We also need to adopt a common definition. We wrote one, and you can have it, use it, because we rely so much on caregiving, and yeah, that's noble work. That's important work. It's essential work, but it's not the only thing direct support professionals do. I'm not going to read this. I'm going to give it to you. And it focuses on more than just caregiving. It is a complex job that requires a high level of skill, a high level of acuity, a high level of accountability, a high level of of independent decision-making and judgment. Not everybody can do this work. We got to get rid of that notion. Okay, recruitment and selection. Realistic job previews have been shown in research to be highly effective for difficult to recruit for jobs, like direct support professionals. We did this one, I did this one in New York, called We Get It Done. It's a little bit long, it's like 26 minutes long, but it gives a prospective direct support professional a real sense of what this job is. The good things, and there are many. The challenges, and there are many. You can find them in this video. And we tried to sell this video. We did it on CDs, and you can order them. And eventually it winds up on YouTube. We take it down from YouTube. The next day it's back up on YouTube. We gave up. Go on YouTube, search We Get It Done Working as a Direct Support Professional. It's yours. But the reality is, these people that come into your work, they may not have any clue what a direct support professional does. And we can't sugarcoat what they do. Oh, you can eat your meals for free, you go on vacations, you have fun, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you do that, but there's a whole lot more to it. And by the way, I've walked into organizations who've been using this realistic job preview, and they have it on a loop in their human resources office. That's not the way to use a realistic job preview video. Here's how you use it. When somebody comes in, you watch it together. And then you ask meaningful questions derived from that RJP. What appeals to you most about what you saw? What concerned you the most about what you saw? How do you feel about providing intimate personal supports? How do you feel about supporting people with challenging behaviors? What other things about what you saw you didn't know about this work? Our RJP could filter out those people who have no interest in really doing this work, and it's better to get rid of them before you hire them. Use it. More ideas about recruitment and selection. We have to attract younger people to this work. The median age for a direct support professional in this country is in the high 30s. I think it's like 38 years old. It might be higher. I wasn't going to talk about that, but I'll get that information for you. But it's an aging workforce. We need to attract younger people, and younger people are not going to come for $10 an hour. And they're not going to come to help people primarily with their personal care. We have to share with them the historical nature of this work. We need to make this work attractive. We need to focus on the real meat and gravy of this work. Upholding people's civil and human rights, helping people underscore the significance of life in the community, because 50 years ago, people were in institutions. Assisting people to access the opportunities and resources that are available in your community. Helping people understand guardianship and conservatorship and the limitations of guardianship and conservatorship, and helping people make decisions on their own. This will appeal to young people. I've got 3 kids. All of them are millennials. One of them is a direct support professional. And when they were younger, I would have told you, this is the one. He's the one. The other 2, no interest. We know who they are, but you have to appeal to them in a way that shows that this work is noble. Job matching, and I realize that job matching at this point in our crisis is a luxury. But I can tell you, job matching works. During that RJP interview, when you're doing that realistic job preview interview, whoever's doing that needs to pay careful attention about what this person's interests are, what this person likes, and then try to match that person's interests and likes with the people that they support. You can't just fill a hole. You have to be mindful and intentional about what setting this person would be best in. And the human resources employees or whomever is responsible for job placement needs to know, 1, the people that you support, who they are, what they like, and two, what direct support professionals do, and the complexities of what they do. Real short story. I was doing this workshop with, I think, like 10 providers from the Eastern Shore in Maryland, and they were trying to prepare their organizations for the final settings rule, and they had a broad stakeholder group from each of these 10 organizations: executive leadership, finance, board members, management teams, HR, direct support professionals, and people with disabilities. And we're at a break, and I'm sitting at this table. I'm kind of shy, and most people don't believe that, but I am. And I'm sitting at this table, and a guy that received support from one of these organizations sat next to me. And we're making some small talk and having a coffee. And I said, "So what do you do? What do you like to do? What do you do for fun?" And he said, "Well, I like to ride my bike. I'm a cyclist, bicycle." And it caught my attention because that's what I do. I'm a cyclist. That's my hobby. That's my passion. If it's not snowing up here in Vermont, you'll find me on a bike. So then it led us to more conversations. So the first thing a cyclist will ask another cyclist is, "What kind of bike do you have?" And he said, "Well, I ride a Trek Madone, which is a real bike." How often do you ride? "I ride 4 or 5 times a week, probably get about 150 miles in a week." Whoa, me too. So we developed this nice rapport. At the end of the day, I go to the executive director, who's a friend of mine. I said, "Listen, if I ever move to Maryland and I'm looking for a direct support job in my retirement, I want to work with him. We'd get along great. We would ride our bikes together. We'd support each other." See, bad matching leads to early turnover. We need to find ways to keep people, and matching will help. And by the way, there's also this notion of good turnover. There's people back at your organizations that you want to turn over. Let's be honest with each other. We call that good turnover. And I would argue that that's not good turnover, that's bad hiring. And there is no such thing as good turnover. The only good turnover, perhaps, is if I was working with that guy who liked to ride his bicycle, and I left for another job, and we continued our relationship riding our bikes together. That's good turnover. Job matching works. Including, this is not a new idea. It's not my idea, certainly, but including the people that you support in interviewing and being involved in the hiring process. It's easier said than done. A lot of times, people with disabilities don't understand. We have to help them understand the bigger picture. It's not about you, it's about the entire organization. They need to understand what questions we can ask and what questions we can't ask in a formal interview. And it's a great way for people with disabilities to be part of a HR team and have meaningful employment because they have a lived experience of receiving supports. And I can help you understand what I'm looking for as a direct support professional. Tricky, but it works. I'm going to switch over to onboarding and professional development. Why do I have a slide with Dead Poets Society on it? Robin Williams. And if you ever seen this movie or read the book, you would know that Robin Williams was Mr. Keating. He was a teacher at a private boarding school with young men, and he was passionate. He was considerate. He pushed people, his students. He tried to raise the bar for his students. That's what we're looking for in our trainers. We want trainers who are engaging, who are fun. They are your first welcome to new employees. They're often the people that your new employees go to when they're having a bad day. They can't sit there and lecture. Young people don't want to be lectured. Trust me, I got 3 of them. They don't want to be lectured. They want to be involved in active learning. They want to be involved in role plays and group discussions and critical discussions, and make your orientation and your trainings dynamic. The opposite of Mr. Keating and Dead Poets Society is, and I know I'm dating myself again, remember the movie Ferris Bueller and Ferris's teacher? The opposite. And sadly, we have a lot of people, a lot of trainers who are more like Ferris Bueller's teacher than Mr. Keating. And the last thing I want to say about this, and this role in your organization is critical. I had done orientation for a while at an organization I worked for a long time ago. And the things that you see in orientation would scare the hell out of you sometimes. I mean, if somebody's falling asleep in orientation and you're hiring them to do an overnight shift, chances are that that person's going to sleep. And in the orientation, I've had people hooking up in orientation. That person, your trainer, whoever this person is, should have the authority to cut people loose, because if they're behaving inappropriately before they even start working with people, that behavior is not going to change. So onboarding, your trainer, the training that you provide has to be dynamic. Furthermore, are you only providing what's mandated by your state? Because states have a very low bar for what is required for direct support professionals in their training. I know in the states that I've worked in, we train direct support professionals in orientation on the worst possible thing that can happen. That's what's required by the state of New York. We are required to train on bloodborne pathogens. If blood is going everywhere in your daily work, that's a bad day. We train people in fire safety, bad day. We train people in first aid and CPR, bad day. We train people, we're required to train people in crisis intervention, bad day. So we're training people for bad days. Training people in corporate compliance, bad day for you. But we're not training people for what is really rich about the work. So competency-based training, real life scenarios, those types of trainings that go beyond the mandated trainings in your state. States have a low bar. We're trying to improve practice standards. If we're just training to what the state requirements are, we're not going to help people have good lives. I know we're coming out of COVID. I used to do a lot of keynotes at conferences. I've been going to conferences and speaking at conferences for the last 12 years. They're usually attended by people in management positions. Very rarely are direct support professionals sent to conferences. And my goodness, nobody needs to get away from work every once in a while more than a direct support professional. I used to ask, how many of you are direct support professionals? Nobody would raise their hand. How many of you used to be direct support professionals? Virtually all of them would raise their hand. Well, direct support professionals are too busy and important at home. We can't free them up. We can free up executives. Nobody's going to miss you for a week. We can't free up a direct support professional for a day because we can't fill those positions. We got to figure that out, because when you do invest in your direct support professionals and send them to a professional conference, they come back and the return on that investment is incredible. Culture. Use some tools. There's tools that we have that are useful. Use vetted and accredited training curriculum. There's great training out there. You don't have to invest, you don't have to create it yourself. It's competency-based. It's meaningful to their work. The code of ethics, the NADSP competencies, you could find them on our website, use them. Ultimately, and this is the third time I've spoken about helping people make decisions. But what you learn in competency-based training and understanding and implementing or integrating the code of ethics into your daily practice will help people make their own decisions. We have a whole curriculum on informed decision-making. It's the future. And if you are providing home and community-based services funded through a waiver, well, you know, the settings rule is going to be implemented in March of 2023. And when you read those settings rules, it's all about helping people make decisions. And DSPs aren't prepared. And that's going to be their job. So helping people make decisions is really, really important. I mentioned competencies. These are validated competency areas. These are 15 areas that every direct support professional in this country are doing on a daily basis. But they're doing it without intention. They're doing it because, well, you know, it's like, it's intuitive. These are broad categories. As a matter of fact, here's the anatomy of a competency. There's overall competency language, like participant empowerment. What is participant empowerment? Well, it's helping people direct the course of their own lives, empowering people to make their own decisions. Assessment is informal assessment. I used to work with people, I knew informally that this person was having a bad day. DSPs are good at that. Well, that's a skill. DSPs need to understand that they're skilled, connecting the work that they do to these 15 areas intentionally, not intuitively, intentionally, because that's what professions do. And then each of those 15 areas have skill statements that provides the teacher and provides the practitioner with much more information about what that skill is. These are validated, they're universal, they're portable, they are the foundation of this work. The other foundation is the code of ethics. And then what is a code of ethics? Well, every profession has a code of ethics, every profession, with the exception of the United States Supreme Court. And I'll leave that aside. We have a code of ethics. And the code of ethics is not going to tell you what to do or how to do it like those competencies. The code of ethics is kind of a roadmap when you're lost. When you're confronted by an ethical dilemma, you pull from the code of ethics to help you go in the right direction. There's 9 tenets of the code of ethics, and it's the values of the work. And you can't just read and sign the code of ethics and say, I'm ethical. The code of ethics needs to be integrated into your daily practice. And we have a whole curriculum on the code of ethics. I could spend an hour and a half talking about these 9 tenets. I'll spend a minute on person-centered supports, and it'll illustrate one of the ethical dilemmas that DSPs face on a regular basis. Our person-centered supports tenet starts off with, as a direct support professional, my first allegiance is to the person I support. All functions and activities that I perform flow from this allegiance. Pretty powerful, but it's filled with potential dilemmas. Like when a supervisor comes to me and tells me to clean that person's apartment because the state is coming in next week, and if that apartment isn't cleaned, we will have a bad certification visit. And I know this person. This person lived in an institution, and this person had no belongings in an institution. And when this person got out of this institution, belongings meant a lot to this person. And yes, this person's apartment is filled with their belongings. Some people would say that this person is a hoarder. But when my supervisor tells me to clean that apartment, not with that person, but for that person, it's an ethical dilemma because that person has a right to live in their apartment in a way that they want to. And yes, there's a whole lot of other things going on, but that's an example of an ethical dilemma. Back to decision-making. Quick story. I got 4 grandkids. The oldest, his name is Julian Michael. Now he's 11 years old, but this story was when he was 5. And it was about a week before Halloween. And Julie and I went out to dinner, just me and him. And I love my time alone with these kids. And we're out to dinner, we're having a nice dinner. And I asked him, I said, hey, Julian, what are you going to be for Halloween? I thought it was a very innocent question. And he put his fork down and he looked up to me and he said, Pop, I'm Pop. I am so mad at my mom and dad. They want me to be Olaf. And I don't want to be Olaf. I want to be a ninja. And I hate it when they make decisions for me. So that was a light bulb moment for me, because here's a 5-year-old boy sharing with me his frustrations when somebody in authority makes a decision that he can make himself. And how many times did I do that to adults because they had disabilities? I knew better. Professional distance, authority. Well, I didn't even know who Olaf was. As Julian was complaining, I had to Google Olaf under the table. And it turns out Olaf is a Disney character from a movie named Frozen. Never saw it before, but he's cute. And, you know, so he's going on and on. He didn't want to be Olaf, he wants to be a ninja. And I'm trying to change the conversation because it was going nowhere. He made his point. And listen, I'm an old direct support professional. The one thing that I can do better than most people is redirect a conversation. So I said, hey, Julian, what do you want for Christmas? Change the conversation. So anyways, we finish. I drive him home. And I'm driving home and I'm thinking, this really bothers me. So I got on my phone, I pulled over and I texted my son, because when I call him, he doesn't answer. I said, I'm going to call you in 2 minutes, answer the phone. So I call him and he answers the phone. I said, what the hell are you doing? He doesn't want to be Olaf. He wants to be a ninja. Don't you know anything about decision-making? You grew up in my household. We supported people with disabilities. We brought people with disabilities out of our house all the time. You should know better. Shame on you. He goes, Dad, he loves Olaf. He loves the movie Frozen. Come to the school next week and see for yourself at the parade. I said, all right. So a week goes by. I go to the parade. And I realized at that point, I just needed to let it go. If you've seen the movie, you got that joke. And here comes Olaf. He's cute. That's Julian. He's dressed as Olaf. It's a homemade costume. It's great. So anyways, I forgive my son and my daughter-in-law. And I said, you know, after you trick-or-treating, come on over to the house. I got some stuff for Julian. So they come over and Julian goes right into my home office and he's in there for a while because that's where all the toys and shit is. And I'm out talking with my son and my daughter-in-law. And out comes Julian as a ninja, because choice matters at Pop's house. Choice. People with disabilities are historically experienced poor because we made decisions for them. And people who are experienced poor are uncomfortable making their own decisions. The reality is, as Simon Sinek says, there's two kinds of decisions: the right decision and a lesson learned. And human decision-making, regardless of disability, is flawed. We learn from bad decisions. We learn from our mistakes. We need to help people make their own decisions. And if a mistake is made, if it's a bad decision, we need to help that person reflect on that process and correct that decision in the future. That's growth, that's potential, that's a DSP's job. Decision-making is huge. Career ladders. Career ladders work. My goodness, I've been screaming about career ladders for 30 years. Career ladders keep high-performing direct support professionals in the jobs that they're good at and give them the opportunity, after they demonstrate their skills and their skills are objectively measured, give them a living wage. And we have a credentialing program. It's a rigorous credentialing program. It's built on these micro credentials. digital badges that are aligned with the competency areas, the skill standards. And there's 3 different levels. And it's for incumbent direct support professionals. Our credentialing program is not for every DSP, but it's for those DSPs who are here for a career. And we know that career ladders work, and we have everything we need to create a profession. Think about nurses, body of knowledge, they've got it. We've got it, a body of knowledge, competency-based training, validated competency areas. Nurses have it. We have validated competency areas, a code of ethics to guide us in our values. All professions have it. We've got a code of ethics. Universally recognized and portable certifications. It exists, but nobody's using it because it's not funded. It's got to be funded by government, because if it's funded, I can demonstrate to you that those people stay on the job longer. Overtime is expensive. We wrote the president a report to the president in 2017. $2.5 billion is spent on overtime and HCBS services. 2.5 billion. Some of the organizations that we've been working with in our credentialing program are seeing single-digit turnover, 7-8% turnover. And compared with their non-certified staff, 40-50% turnover. Learn your job, demonstrate your skills, earn more money. That's a career ladder based on knowledge, skills, and values. It exists. And we've got documents. We wrote a whole paper on it for states, for Medicaid directors at states, for your rate setting folks. You need to incorporate career ladders in your rate setting methodology to keep high performing DSPs in the jobs. Otherwise, you're going to have this churn that's continued for 30 years. It's time to do something about it. Our credentialing program is called the eBadge Academy. You can find it on our website. So I'm not going to get into that. And lastly, look at this, I'm right on an hour. Lastly, if you're going to implement these things that I'm talking about, you need to collect data, you need to measure it, you need to assess it, you need to act on it. It can't be done in a vacuum. It's got to be a process that addresses culture, selection and recruitment, onboarding and professional development, hopefully career ladders or other measures to keep people in your organization, recognition. It needs to be done in a very thoughtful, deliberate way. And it starts with leadership. It starts with you folks. Here's our contact information. We're easy to find, nadsp.org. A whole lot of information about everything that I talked about is on there today. We're on Twitter, we're on YouTube. You could find that RJP on YouTube. I don't know if it's under NADSP, but I choose to not pay attention to that because we put a lot of work into that. And we're on Facebook. And if you really want to understand the collective mindset of the direct support professionals in this country, join our Facebook page. You have to put in National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals, and it will inform you, and it will alarm you, and it will help you understand what DSPs are saying outside of work. With that, I turn it over with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Joseph.
Hold on, and I know I get really emotional about this stuff, and sometimes I yell. I'm not yelling at you. Trust me, I do this with peace and love.
Oh, no. Your workshop was very, very helpful. I did find that's how I found you, was on the Facebook page.
Okay.
I love the thread on the Facebook page that asked, as a new provider coming into the field, what sort of suggestions would the older folks give to the new people? And I think that thread went on a long, long time with lots of great suggestions and helpful things. I love your organization, the structure that you built with things, and it's going to take some serious change in the state of Florida, and it's going to take a while. Florida is just a real slow mover. But I'm looking forward to see if we had any other questions that popped up. And we did do a live transcription of this. And after it processes, then we'll make it available on our website. Thank you for your suggestions on things. What's next? What does it take for someone to join your organization or be, if they're a DSP in the field, can they join you on a?
Oh, yeah. Let me just talk about membership. Yes. So we are a membership organization, and, you know, getting information to direct support professionals is not easy. They're an elusive group, and the only way that we can really reach out and engage with direct support professionals is if their employers let us. So we have a membership project where an organization can join an annual membership, and all of your DSPs become members of NADSP. Everybody in your organization becomes members.
Okay.
And we will share, as any membership organizations, we send out a lot of information, all of it germane to direct support work. So you can look on our website. Please join us. If you join now, your membership won't expire until December of 2023. So.
Gotcha. And if I'm a solo DSP provider in the field, it wasn't very much, was it?
$10. $10 if you're a solo DSP. Yeah. We've considered doing it for free, but I'm a strong believer in you need to have a little bit in the game to be actively involved. So we charge $10 a year.
Gotcha. Okay. Looking at the questions in the chat box, we have someone asking about a copy of your PowerPoints that you used. Is that possible? Or
yeah, I'll send it to you. I tinker with my PowerPoints all the time. I'll send it to you, and by all means share it. I'll send it to you in a PDF.
Gotcha. That would be wonderful. Want to thank you again for your time and everything that you yourself as your organization does. Please let us know how we can join with you in the future and you know, to help bring Florida on board with everything else. We definitely need a lot of the suggestions that you mentioned in this.
Well, thank you very much, and keep in touch. And if you ever need some interventions or a speaker at a conference, we're happy to come down.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. And thanks, everybody. Once again, this was recorded, so we're going to be uploading this and available on our website and also through links through Facebook later on today. So thank you, everybody, for attending, and you all have a good day.